Swagger on point when I step in. Signs in the air for the gang that you're repping. Don't get brave when I'm stepping in the rave. If you show man love, everything's okay. So looking for a lively rave to have fun in. If there ain't girls in the place, we ain't coming. Middle finger up to the Jake, stepping in with the gang. Please tell the police they can't come in. Show me a salute, that's gang. Pure love for the crew, that's gang. Don't chat shit if you ain't gonna bang. Just show man a sign if you're down for the gang. Show me a salute, that's gang. Pure love for the crew, that's gang. Don't chat shit if you ain't gonna bang. Just show man a sign if you're down for the gang. Man a sign if you're down for the gang.
Can't fuck with the gang, we don't fucking pretend. We be busting the clubs cause you know that we can. Can't fuck with the gang, we don't fucking pretend. Still rocking the show, still feeling the flow.
Welcome back, Juventini, to the Juventinita Back to Black and White podcast. My name is Daniel Negro, and I'm live from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. This is episode number 11. Yes, 11. I didn't make a mistake this time. And today we're going to be going over the post-match of Juve-Bologna, which was on Monday. A couple days. It's been kind of hectic getting guests and finding the right days. And but this is the new reality with this new condensed schedule. So we move on. Obviously, Serie A has kicked off, and there's been some interesting games. Just today, there was quite a few matches that obviously didn't involve us, but are very crucial in our race. And just before I bring on another special guest to the pod, just to remind you guys, please subscribe, drop a like, notification bell on YouTube. Obviously, if you're on iTunes or Spotify, please follow, drop a rating. If you want to get on the show, like I always say, please DM me. We have so many matches coming up, post-match, pre-match, or even just a topic you guys want to talk about. It can be anything from transfers to financials to whatever. Just drop me a message on WhatsApp or Twitter or Instagram, wherever you guys are on, and we'll get that set up. So without further ado, a guy that I've just recently met, and he's also a musician, and he's been writing for UVFC.com. Welcome, Travis, from sunny Los Angeles, California.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It is actually a nice day today, so kind of like that.
Yeah, it's weird. We've been in this muggy kind of weather. It's been warm, but it's almost like West Coast, like up here right now. It's weird. We usually don't get this warm and then lots of thunderstorms and stuff like that, but it's been a pretty good, decent year for us. We haven't had any snow yet. But we can get it anytime up to June, July, August, So that's the Canadian way. But anyway, so we'll just get into how you became a Juve fan.
So actually, not like a real whimsical story for me. I'm a second-generation Italian-American, and my family, or half of my family, is from Turin. So I pretty much grew up watching Juventus games. Soccer is one of the only sports I played, so it was one of the only teams I realistically understood or knew anything about outside of like the alma maters of my like parents' colleges. So as I grew up, I just became more and more attached to it as I continued to play the sport and follow the sport and get into the FIFA franchise. Which I guess is kind of a blessing and a curse because most of my friends here are into the NFL, but when they talk about football to me, I'm like, oh, who's your team? And then it's something like, I like the Chargers, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot. You guys aren't same side of the coin as me.
Yeah, exactly. So where'd your parents go to school? Were they alma mater in and around California, or?
Yep. So my mom went to USC, and my dad went to UCLA.
That's my team, man. That's my team.
Little crosstown rivalry in the home.
Yeah, that's crazy. I almost love it more than the NFL, actually. But in the early 2000s, right, USC was just dominating in football, and I think it just naturally just connected. So, go Trojans. I know that it's been a little bit of a rough patch, but Yeah, no, love American football and stuff like that. But yeah, no, it's definitely difficult. I understand. Same up here with hockey, right? There's even it's getting better, I would say. Obviously, the most played sport in Canada would be soccer now, but yeah, definitely something different from when I was younger. But yeah, let's get into the big breaking news. Kind of lately, they're talking about the deal with Barcelona for Arthur Melo, which was apparently agreed to for 80 million euros. What have you thought of this whole saga, and kind of what did you think? What do you think of the player if you've watched him at least?
So I know a little bit about him. I don't watch a ton of Barcelona games in general because I don't have cable and they're not on like ESPN Plus or any of the streaming platforms. Well, from what I've seen of him and done a bit of research, he's a bright young man. He hasn't quite broken into the side yet, so there's not a lot of consistent minutes, but I know the big disagreement was on the valuation of players. They wanted 80, we wanted 70 for Pjanic. But I think it's a good move for all parties involved. We need to make the team a bit younger. Pjanic has clearly lost some interest and perhaps a step, maybe needs a change of scenery to revitalize him. The midfield for them is getting a little creaky and maybe needs a little change of scenery. So I'm all for it. Yeah, I hope it goes through, and I know they're trying to get the deal done here within the week so there's like a profit possibility because players have to be registered before June 30th. So I think if it does wrap up, we'll know in the coming days.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're saying the deadline is being June 30th, like you said. What did you think about his reluctance to come, though? I mean, he's never really came out and said that he wanted to join, he really hasn't made any comments in general at all. It's now, I guess there's been a lot of reports. What's true, what's not, we don't know, but it seems like there's been a corner turn, maybe him knowing that he's not going to be in the plans for Barcelona, even though he started the last game. And kind of another thing more about transfers. There's been a question about these inflated transfer fees. What are your kind of thoughts? I know someone posted it they posted a question in the official club that I'm a part of, obviously Bianconeri YYZ. And I find that it's the way they amortize contracts and they show profits on these deals, obviously after they've been, obviously when you add the value that is amortized over the contract plus what they're making, you can almost show positive values. So obviously Juve knows what they're doing. We've talked about this a lot about obviously selling players for plusvalenza, but what are your thoughts on that? And obviously again, his reluctance to come.
Yeah, as far as his reluctance to come, I tend to take a lot of comments made by players, especially when it comes to transfers, with a grain of salt. For a couple of reasons. Number one, when you get into that time of the year, every rag is trying to come up with material, especially if they don't have any quality material. So did he say something? Did he not? That's quite possible. There's also, especially for people who speak English and maybe don't speak that language, there may be a little, miscommunication or lost in translation there as well. So right. If he's dead set on being at that club, I can understand his reluctance to want to leave and having a desire to stay and fight for a position, and I can respect that as a player in him. If he got to a point where he understood he wasn't in the plans and he was going to be moved on one way or another, and that maybe smoothed out some rough edges on what he was saying, I think that's okay too. I think it's really going to be most important that if he does come, that he performs, and whether or not he's reluctant to come, if he does end up here, that he does a decent job and puts in the effort. As far as inflated transfers, yeah, I mean it's become really a game of large numbers nowadays, and with all the money that's pumped into some of these clubs and some of these leagues, especially La Liga and the Premier League, you do tend to see that because clubs have so much more money to spend that, somebody who from Serie A might be, a 20 million euro midfielder that plays on a mid-table side is, a 40, 50 million euro midfielder who plays on a mid-table side in England. But there's obviously a huge disparity in money. And I guess fortunately for us, we have like some good negotiation skills, and it might even lend a light to why we typically go for more inexpensive or up-and-coming players or even free transfers, because even though we've progressed quite a lot over the years, we still don't have the true financial might of like a Man City or something like that, where we can spend 300-400 million euro over the course of 2 to 3 seasons to build an entirely new squad and have a top 1 or 2 player in every position.
Yeah, no, I think it's difficult because there's a lot of questions about this FFP and is it really working, and I always question whether it's really strict enough. I've always come because of obviously the NHL kind of influence, more of a cap route, but I know it's difficult because there's so many leagues, different countries, obviously different financial powers that be, right? You have the top to the bottom, right? That would affect us, not just a league of 30 teams that you have to worry about. That's generating revenue all for one league. So it is a difficult situation, but I just find there's still too much dope. You look at what happened with Man City, and they're cooking the books there. Obviously, they got caught. We'll see if they hold true to punishing them. But that's still to be seen. Obviously, I think what's been good is it's helped smaller teams not necessarily go bust as easily because they're holding them to more stringent regulations. But yeah, I mean, you look at just recently Stefano Muratore, we just sold to Atalanta for 7 to 8. So you look at that, that's going to be, I'm guessing, some good plusvalenza on that, because I believe he's a youth product. So really, cost is essentially nothing. And
To your point, for financial fair play to truly work or to have any like credence, you have to hold these teams accountable,
right,
in one way or another. And upholding a transfer ban, yeah, that's one thing. If City really does get ousted from the Champions League, that's an entirely different story. That gives it a lot more like viability, a lot more credence,
right,
that this governing body will take serious action, because the amount of damage that would do on such a large scale club is you could see, a Pep Guardiola leaving the club because he wants to be in the Champions League. Perhaps a Kevin De Bruyne, players like that making an exodus because they don't want to be just fighting for the league. They want to be in a club that's making that much money, that so they can get better contracts, they can bring in better players and win the ultimate prize. But on the flip side of that, you look at a team like Atalanta, who's playing perhaps some of the best football in Europe right now, and they're doing it for pennies on the dollar. Their entire squad is like less money than we pay Ronaldo almost every year. So I think it's possible. It's just a matter of like what your model is and how you're going to do it. But yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, and now obviously just moving on from Arthur, but still in part of that deal, obviously, like you said, is Pjanic going the other way. Now, there was a report. Now, we don't know if this paper talk, it's obviously been denied by Sarri, but the bust-up that apparently happened in practice before this game, and there was really a lot of people were questioning whether he was going to be in the lineup versus Bologna or not, instead of obviously Ramsey being the other person that was involved in a lot of the pre-match formations. But do you think it was just media tactics, just trying to, play, or do you play on obviously the negative media that Pjanic, because he hasn't obviously had a great season so far, and obviously he's been, I would say, going on a little bit of a downhill spiral for almost about 2 years now. But did you think it actually happened, or you think they're just trying to stir the pot?
I think there's a 50-50 chance it happened. It could be just people trying to stir the pot because they see the Arthur transfer, taking shape here. It could also just be Sarri's frustration with some of his players and the performances they've been having lately. Because at the beginning of the year, he was pretty vocal about wanting to make Pjanic the center of the midfield and him wanting to have so many touches every game, and he really hasn't been performing. So it could have been something as simple as Sarri calling him out at practice after a bad game, and he didn't like what was said to him, so kind of got in his face. But yeah, I mean, it's really hard to tell. None of us were there. I mean,
Right.
it's something for us as fans to read about and talk about. So there's always that component. But did it happen? I can't say 100%, but I could say that it's possible.
Yeah, no, I think, and I think just showing him being in the lineup is, stuff happens in practice again in all sports, and if the good teams move on and they deal with it, and obviously put things aside and move on. And I think we played a pretty good game from what we've seen so far. Obviously Lazio losing today to Atalanta 3-2. That was a crazy game, back and forth. Obviously, Lazio had a 2-0 lead, and Atalanta came back and snatched the victory from them. So that's massive. I mean, that's what I was looking forward to, and that's why I thought our game with Bologna was so important, because obviously we didn't look great in the first two games, and you want to set the right foot when going forward, obviously with the second, if you want to call it second leg now, being the Serie A games, the restart of the season. And then obviously you have Merda drawing Sassuolo, where Gagliardini, if you didn't see, missed a wide open net.
I did see that.
And that was incredibly, I don't know, a professional at his level. But yeah, so I think it's we gotta obviously look into the next game. We gotta take advantage of this. But I think not that it's any stage closer to being over. I mean, it's only the first game, just like it was only the two games in Coppa Italia. But yeah, I think for Juve, it's looking bright. We've got the first win. Now we gotta improve. And let's get into the game. What I like to do is a minute by minute kind of recap. So we'll go kind of over the first 20-ish, 25 minutes, get your opinion on it, and then continue on, move forward throughout the game. So just some of the notes that I had written down. Obviously, 7th minute, Ronaldo had an amazing chance. He curled one over. The goalie got his hands to it, popped out to Bernardeschi, and he just didn't really have enough on it. But it was an interesting start. It wasn't overly fast. Bologna was pressing hard. Definitely a team that did not want to sit back like what it seemed like we were used to. So they weren't following that blueprint of just throwing 10 behind the ball and seeing what we could do. They actually were really looking to press and trying to win the game. 17th minute, Ronaldo has takes the free kick, obviously missed, and I wrote shocker. It was pretty funny that he wanted to take it. I mean, obviously, it's good that he's confident, but I just think in Dybala we have the better chance, and even Pjanic, I think, given what he's done for us in the past, should have been taking it. And then we get into the 21st minute where there's kind of a commotion in the box, and we don't know necessarily what's going on initially. Obviously, in the replay, you see Delic's shirt getting tugged, and the VAR check ensues. Obviously, we're awarded that PK, and Ronaldo steps up and slots it home. So yeah, to me personally, I mean, you look at the tug, and I mean, yes, there's contact in the box. For me, a penalty is more of I want to say a stringent rule. You don't want to be given these, and I don't know. I mean, it's just today's football. Personally, I wouldn't have given it. because there's a lot. It's a contact sport. You don't want to take that away. It's not like it was an egregious pull. I mean, it was more of a he grabbed them, but again, it's a penalty. But for me, I wasn't. I was kind of like, it was a little bit of a chintzy penalty, but that's okay. We got the goal. What were your thoughts on the first 25 minutes, Travis?
First 25 minutes or so, especially, well, one thing that you brought this up is, at what point do you just have to say, Ronaldo, you're not taking free kicks anymore?
Yeah.
Let him take the penalties, but it's been apparent for some time that gift may have left his, tool chest, so to speak. If you look at the numbers, he's converting at like 5 or 6% below Dybala and Pjanic. So I think at some point, especially if you want to use those types of, strategies or, set pieces to get goals or have the opportunity to get goals, you got to take him out of that. The penalty, yeah, you could argue that one way or the other all day. It's not a glaringly obvious one. Is it technically a penalty by the letter of the law? Like, yes, it is, but it could go either way. But I wasn't overly impressed. I thought with the first 25 or so minutes, I thought we would come out with a little more fire in our bellies, especially after the loss. I think there was some positives. We did see to be like moving the ball around. It was nice to see a little bit more open of a game, but still didn't really seem like we had our foot on the gas all the way. Like we were struggling to get out of second gear. I think the penalty was, a kind of we'll take it if we can get it at this point based on the way that we're playing. But before that, I don't think we truly looked like scoring like really early in the match from open play. And that probably set the stage for the rest of the game, because if they wanted anything out of it, they're going to have to bring the game to us. And that probably allowed us to open our game up a little bit more and have some better chances. But I'm a perennial, accuser of Juventus for getting their shooting boots. Like, if you look at the statistics game by game, we're having 15, 18, 20 plus chances and maybe putting away one goal. And this isn't a recent thing. This has been happening since Allegri was in charge. And I think if we have any, want to have any chance of, winning emphatically and giving most of the supporters the types of games and experiences they want, and even winning silverware, you got to start putting the ball in the back of the net, and for more than just penalty kicks that you're getting after VAR is reviewing them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people were, I guess, impressed. I think after we get this first goal, and it's almost like the monkey's off our back, and obviously it helps when you have a team, like I said, Bologna, playing open and playing to score, because it allows for a lot more room and there's more space because they're pushing up a little bit higher and they're pressing. So I found that's why we were able to use the wings a lot. Also, our link-up play was pretty good, and I found Bernardeschi was doing a pretty good job. Tech was really rusty in this first half. I know it was his first game back, but at least 2 goals could have been conceded by just errant passes, one down the middle in the 36th minute. And it's like, almost the Juve way, we have a little bit of an error there, and then we go all the way down the pitch. I believe it was Bernardeschi with a nice flick to Dybala, makes the run, and obviously drags the defender with him. And then Dybala has that free space and just wails one into the top corner. Just brilliant. Bernardeschi, I believe, obviously having I think making the necessary runs. I think he's in the position that we all know that he could perform at. I mean, obviously, this is, I would say, his second performance since the Atletico game. So let's obviously hold our judgment on if this is the new reality or a changed Bernardeschi, but just because I think it really helped in the team that we played against playing the style they were. And yeah, it just opened up from there. I found 40th minute, you have a great cross from Ronaldo. He like feints on the winger and then puts a nice ball over to what seemed like Dybala, just free and away, and he just couldn't get the foot on it, and he obviously missed. It was obviously a great chance, and there was quite a few of those this game. But so hopefully, you know, like you said, we get those shooting boots, and again, 43rd minute Tech, same thing. It was like, but you know, it's his first game back. Obviously, Buffon had the first 2 games. What, you know, you're gonna expect a little bit after that time, getting used to playing again, and you know, getting accustomed to passing to his defenders and stuff like that. But you know, yeah, like I said, Bologna was not sitting back, and yeah, since that 40th minute, it was just confidence from the team, and obviously we go into halftime. So, what did you think about, I guess, if you want to call it the second half of the first half, Travis?
I would agree with you. I don't remember I can't remember exactly if it was the first half of the second half, but there was a moment where De Ligt kind of tried to make a back pass and we almost scored on ourselves.
Yeah, it was the second half. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
that first one.
It was just, you know, kind of one of those things where I was sitting there thinking to myself, is this just an error of like thought, or are you trying to be a little bit too cheeky right now? Because that could have really brought them back into the game. So
Yeah.
I was a little bit confused when I saw that. I was really impressed with Bernadeschi in this game and like what he was doing. My criticism of him has never though been that he doesn't put the effort. He's always, you know, running around when he's on the pitch in every game. It's just like his final product hasn't been there for some time. You know, he won't make the right choice for a pass in the final third. His shot just seems to not find the target so often. He's not a great crosser of the ball as a rule. But, you know, I've been somebody who's talked about using him as a Mizala as well because he does have that energy. He will, you know, hunt people down and tackle them. But, yeah, it seemed like a more open game for us. We did carve out a few decent chances. The team was moving well. Again, not quite out of second gear for me yet. I think maybe we're trying to, like, pace ourselves back into this restart here because there's so many games to be played, but yeah, not a ton to complain about. I know there was I believe a yellow card somewhere in there for Bologna, for Bologna. I could be wrong about that. I'm not looking at the specific thing right now, but not a whole lot. Like after Dybala's goal, it seemed kind of like one-way traffic. Not a whole lot actually happened for the rest of the game until we got to the very end where Danilo lost the plot a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get into that. Obviously, Ronaldo had a great chance. He just towed it to the right of the goalie. So there was definitely lots of chances that we had. Obviously, like you said, the shooting boots weren't necessarily there. But yeah, in the second half, I thought it was very comfortable. I think defensively, Bologna wasn't good enough. There was a lot of times where they were leaky at the back, and they were obviously trying to push. So, like I said, you're going to get those opportunities against a team like that. I think it was still, you know, Berna had a couple nice shots. Obviously, Pjanic then hits the wall, and then I'm just like, just give the damn ball to Dybala on these free kicks. Like, I don't know why they have so many. Like you said earlier, I don't know why they have so many different. Just stick with one guy. Plan your strategy around that. Obviously, where the ball is on the field and where the foul is committed. But yeah, it's and Mattia De Sciglio, I think for the most part was doing a decent job there in the left back position. Was honestly surprised to see that because of, you know, MDS horror shows that we've seen in the past. But I think he did a very good job coming in. Now, the unfortunate thing is in the 65th. Oh, and actually, I do have to note, so I got to tell the Ronaldo fans, thank you, Ronaldo, for tracking back in the 63rd minute. It was a shocker to see him in our final quarter of the field. Could not believe it. I think he even won the ball back, too. So yeah, awesome to see that. I don't know. I'm guessing he's getting the message. But yeah, in the 65th minute, Matilda Deschilio pulls up and he gets a ball on the wing there, and he just obviously lets the ball go out of play, and doesn't look good with the situation we have. Obviously, Alexandro being out for a shorter period of time, but still not with this I want to say concise schedule. Still going to miss quite a few games because there's so many games compacted in there. So Danilo comes on, and again, still comfortable, I would say. Matuidi replaces Rabiot. Ramsey comes on for Pjanic. Just some fresh legs, I would say, kind of, get them some time. Obviously, Ramsey needs to, get back to full fitness. Ronaldo had a couple chances. Then you get Douglas Costa coming on for Dybala. I think Dybala had a really good game today. I would say probably the best player, just pips Bernardeschi with the goal, obviously. And then we get into the 82nd minute. And Danilo makes just a bonehead challenge. And you're like, why are you doing this? So he gets his first yellow card. And the game continues on. It's kind of getting a little, I think it was a pretty combative game. There was cards shown, but about 8 minutes later in sleeping time, basically no need to do anything stupid. Get out with a result, no injuries, no cards, nothing, just end the game. And then he makes another stupid challenge and gets sent off in the 91st minute. Now I'm like, we're really stretched now because you have Matilda Deschilio, who's probably going to be out. I'm going to assume that. I haven't really heard any update on that. And obviously Alexandro's out. Now Danilo's out. So this game against Lecce is going to be very interesting on who we're putting, if we're putting a U23 player or if we're going to test something with Matuidi. This is going to be very interesting. I think a very selfish decision. I think he was the worst player just because of that incident. It's just ridiculous. You're a professional and you got to be present in the moment, knowing that you're down players and you can't be doing stupid things like that to even hurt your team further down the line. So yeah, what do you think about that second half? I think it was pretty straightforward.
I mean, I almost felt a little bit bad for Matteo Deschilio coming off almost immediately after getting carded with an injury. Yeah. But another player who is perennially unfit, so I can't say I'm terribly surprised that he went off with injury. I'm hoping it's not serious, but I also haven't seen anything. Pretty straightforward second half for the most part. Danilo, keep your head on your shoulders, my friend. What in the world were you thinking? And to come on 2-0 up and that late in the game and then get 2 yellow cards in the space of the last 10 minutes, that's just unprofessional. And that makes you look bad more than anything. It makes you look like you can't keep a cool head on your shoulders, that you're willing to go into a silly challenge late in the game, and that's definitely hurt us going forward, at least for the immediate, because you're going to serve the 1 match ban. So going into the next game, yeah, I think it will be interesting to see what we do. Maybe we're somewhat fortunate that it's against this Lecce side, because they're not potent at either end. So maybe this is a moment where we can get through this scenario with the ammunition we still have.
Yeah, and I think it was like you said, it's just a stupid decision on the players' part, and I'm not sure about Lecce. They've given us trouble. We drew them in the south there. So obviously it's been some time, not necessarily saying it's going to be the same game, but I think this is going to be the next kind of test and the next notch we need to put in our belt. because I think they are going to sit back. And like I said, Bologna is playing a 4-2-3-1, pretty much the same lineup I believe we discussed on the preview. They had Skorupski, Dykes, right back, Denswil, Danilo, and Tomiyasu on defense, Svanberg, Medel in the holding role, and Sansone, Soriano, and Orsolini on the wing, on the the attacking mid with the two wingers, and obviously Bato as the striker. So, and then for us, obviously, we were playing our usual 4-3-3, Quadrado at right back with Delict and Bonucci in them as the center backs, De Sciglio on the left. Obviously, Bentancur, Pjanic, and Rabiot, which kind of surprised me. Yeah, I didn't really see much out of him in the previous game, so I was actually kind of shocked that he was brought in. I know rotation is going to be very important, so I'm guessing that's why he didn't put in Matuidi, was for, a change of body there. But and then Bernardeschi, there was definitely rumor that he was going to be in the lineup. We did a preview about a day earlier than I had wanted to, but just because of the time commitments with obviously my guest, which was again not a big deal. But the one website that was reporting a lineup did have him in that role. So when I actually saw it on the official lineup that got announced for the game, I was actually quite shocked. But I find it's tough for him because you look at Costa as maybe the guy that you want in the better player. So to get him in that right wing role was going to be difficult, right? That's kind of what I thought with playing this 4-3-3, and then obviously having Ronaldo in the lineup. It's tough to accommodate players that are also wingers because you can only play so many people at once, right? So no, he definitely looked good, Bernardeschi. Again, I'm not going to jump to saying he's saved or things have changed, but definitely a good performance out of him. And let's see if that's going to be played again. But who knows? Maybe there could be another rotation. But if he does play again, yeah, hopefully he puts in another good performance. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with saying that. Again, nothing against the guy, but when you only have one good performance since Atletico Madrid, I mean, you can't really not expect to be criticized, as a professional player, right? So, which again, Sadi talked about, but we'll get into that a little bit later. What do you think about our lineup or our selection before the match?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I was terribly surprised. There's going to be loads of rotation right now, playing every 3 days. So and with the injuries that we do have and how fragile some of our players are, I think some of the players who have come under intense criticism in the past are going to be utilized whether we want them to be or not, because there's just no way you can play the same 11 players every 3 days and have them not be either fatigued or get hurt. So, yeah, I mean, it's nice to see the rotation. I hope that this does give opportunity for some of the lesser characters in the squad to show some of their worth, or to regain that bit of confidence and get some more minutes under their belt. And then we'll just have to wait and see how the injuries play out as people come back into the side and who may be going out of the side. I mean, when was the last time Khedira played? Is something we think about. But even if he was healthy, that's another body that can be utilized right now. The majority of our, outside defensive players are injured, so that's a bit of a crisis right now. Yep. So it's going to be an interesting balance to get everybody to stay healthy, to bring players in and out of the side. But I'm happy with the lineup that we used. I thought it was appropriate for the team that we were playing. I think Matuidi perhaps may have been left out to see if he was needed in perhaps like a deeper role, depending on what happened with, other wide defensive players. So that could have been a component, not to perhaps need him, yesterday or 2 days ago, and then again in just a couple days' time. We were playing that much. Obviously, Ronaldo's never coming out of the squad unless perhaps we do win on Friday, and then maybe he could take a rest against one of the other lower table sides we have coming up if we can, put ourselves 7 points clear at the top. But yeah, good selection. Like seeing Dybala in the central role, and I would like to see perhaps Pjanic given a rest and try Bentancur in the deep playmaking role and flank him with maybe Rabiot and Ramsey and see how that looks, because that's something I'd wanted to see since preseason. But overall, the selections for the game were right. We took the 3 points. Can't really do much criticizing outside of that.
Awesome. So who's your best player and who's your worst player if you had to choose?
My best player would probably be Dybala. I mean, he can't take anything away from that goal, and he's seeming to get back into form. Looks good, starting to look real sharp. Worst player, I'm going to give to Danilo, just because, how can you be that stupid in such a critical moment? That's just inexcusable.
Yeah, I have to agree 100% on those. So let's go over the little bit of the player ratings. I know it's been a few days. Start with Tech. What would you give him as a rating for that game? I think I'm gonna go 5. It was more of a rusty first half, and then he really didn't necessarily have to do too much in the second half, so I'll give him a 5. Just, starting game. Nothing special, but yeah, it did have a couple mistakes that could have cost us and could have really changed the game if they do score those, right? So, yeah.
I agree with that. I think for me, I would give him a 6 just on the one extra point that he did save the clean sheet regardless, but not his best performance, couple of mistakes, but just shaking the rust off, so you got to give him a little something there.
Okay, Quadrado, Bonucci, Delict, MDS, Mattia De Chilio. So, yeah, go ahead on those 4.
So I would probably across, just from right to left, I would probably say, 6, 7, 6, 5. Quadrado's looked good. Delict has been a revelation even since he's come back. Bonucci just can't find that final long ball with the accuracy just yet, even though he's pacing him out. But they have looked like a strong defensive pairing, and that's why I would knock a point off from Bonucci. And then De Chilio had a relatively good game, but didn't do anything of note. I take another point from him for the yellow card, and then just because I didn't think it was a necessary, challenge. Maybe he was a little hard done by, but, I think solid, not, miraculous at the back.
Yeah, for me, it's Quadrado 6.5. I think he had a good game. Bonucci 6.5. I think he was solid too. I know he was he had some errors in the previous game, but I think he definitely was, it was a solid game for him. Like you said, Matthias de Ligt, great player for us so far, and he's really maturing and growing in the role. So I'd have to give him a 7. And I think De Chilio, I liked what he was doing. He was, I would say, playing into the role that we needed him to fill. So I'll give him a 6.5. Let's go into the midfield. Bentancur, Pjanic, Rabiot. Bentancur kind of he had a good game. Nothing over the top. Nothing like the first game. I guess when we were playing kind of mediocre, it's pretty easy to stand out. But I would give him a 6. Pjanic also. Not a great game. Nothing over the top special. I'll give him a 6 as well. And Rabiot, I didn't really find. He was losing a lot of balls. I don't know. I'm not sure if he's going to be the guy. And it looks like there's going to be some offers, so I'll give him a 5. What about our midfield 3, Travis?
Yeah, on the same page with you from Bentancur. He was strong in the tackle, but didn't do much other than much going forward. Pjanic, I'm going to give a 5 because horrible free kick. Again, went completely invisible for long stretches of the game. Kind of on the opposite mindset with Rabiot. I thought it was a better game for him. He did have a little bit of like potency in his hold-up play. Seemed to be trying, to make something happen. Obviously, still hasn't found that end product, but he's a player that I've been confident in since we signed him, and I've liked him for a while. He's the type of player who really thrives on that, and I think if you give him a solid run in the side, you probably start seeing the best of him. I don't think he's the type of player who really is successful coming in and out of a side after long stretches and then being left out again for long stretches. He's really more like a striker from a mental standpoint. He thrives on the confidence and the consistency. So hopefully he gets that chance, and I'm not like putting my foot in my mouth at the end of the year if we move him onward because he hasn't done anything.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. Let's go Bernardeschi, Dybala, Ronaldo. I think for Bernardeschi, probably his best game, like I said, in a really long time. I'm going to give him a 7. Dybala, 7.5. I think he just pips him a little bit just because of that great goal, great finish. And, great interlink, great play all around. I think he's always given his all, even though he's made some comments about his fitness. But, and then Ronaldo, I think 6.5, way better game. But again, not necessarily Mr. Champions League style, but definitely a better game, chances. I think he could have capitalized on a lot of his chances, so that's why I'll give him a 6.5, just because that type of caliber player, you need to bury those. And I think it could have been, again, like I said, a different game if he puts that one in. It could have been 3-4-0 by the end of it if he converts. So those are my rankings for those three.
Yeah, I think I'm almost, right on par with you. I'd give Bernardeschi a 7. Lovely flick on for Dybala. Had a much better game. Was looking sharp, was everywhere in the attacking half of the pitch. So I respect that. Good work ethic. Seems to be finding the balance a little bit, maybe getting a little better relationship with Dybala. Dybala given 8. He's looking better and better every game. That goal is an absolute belter. There's just no stopping that, no matter who you are in between the sticks. And then Ronaldo, I'd give a 6. Didn't get a goal. Some of the chances were somewhat wayward. Hit the wall. And just not his best game. But, he's one of those players that once he starts on fire, there's no putting him out. And he really hasn't, gotten to that point yet. Once he finds that scoring rhythm again, I think, everybody will be rating him pretty highly every game because he'll be back to scoring 1 to 2 goals every game, or at least getting an assist, something like that. So I hope to see that sooner than later, but not his best performance.
And then just the subs, I'm going to go Danilo. I'm going to go 1 because that's just a bonehead move. Again, we discussed that. I know it's a low ranking, but, you just got to know in this time with these constraints that we're going to be having, you got to be smarter than that. Matuidi 6, Ramsey 6, and Douglas Costa 6. I mean, just general off the bench, giving the guys some rest. Nothing special I didn't really see out of those guys, but yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to go same as you. Matuidi, Ramsey, Costa 6. Just, greasing the wheels. I think it's good for Costa to continue getting some minutes to make sure he maintains or gets back to full fitness so he doesn't get injury again. The other two were, pretty, you could have guessed that. There's nobody who didn't see that coming. Danilo, I would give a 4 just because up until the last 10 minutes of the game, he wasn't playing terribly. And obviously he had, a decent 20 or so minutes, but yeah, just a total bonehead.
And then Sarri, what do you give Sarri for the game as a whole?
I'll give him a 6. Took all 3 points. It wasn't brilliant attacking sorry ball, but he got the job done. And, first win back of the season and first goals from open play of the season. So,
yeah, I'd have to go 6.5. Same kind of gist as yourself, Travis. Yeah, nothing really special, but we got the job done. I like to see that I like to see a little bit more the runs we were making, a little bit more creativity. I like that he went with Bernardeschi and changed the lineup a bit. He didn't just stick with the same and just kind of force it by putting Douglas Costa back up there. So I like to see that. But again, I think the next game is going to be more of a decider on really how we judge Saturday because of the style I think that Lecce plays. Let's get into the post-match comments. Obviously, you had Saturday saying some great things about Delict, that he's more accustomed, he's adapted much faster than other foreign players, and that he is probably destined to be one of the best players in the world, one of the best defenders in the world, as well as one of the best players in the world. Obviously, he talked about Bernardeschi as well. He saw that he had done well in his last 2 sub appearances. I didn't necessarily see that, so maybe, I don't know, he saw something from the touchline that I didn't. But he said that he gave the impression that he was in good shape. And obviously, he said he's often over-criticized and undervalued. Where do I hear that before? A lot of people like to say the same thing about Khedira. I don't know what these coaches are seeing, but I guess they're seeing something. But anyways, I think kind of general comments from our coach. Then obviously Dybala also had some comments. He said that he didn't feel so well during the game, but he was also happy that he had a great performance. And he mentioned the final, obviously, against Napoli, and saying that if the media kind of took it, and I think I would agree to some point that, if they did get a goal in that game and they obviously win the game, then we look like the dominating team. I didn't see a great performance in either of those 2 teams, Napoli or Juve. Went down to PKs, it is what it is. So not necessarily that I agree with that, but he was saying that he believed that the media would have said, well, if they had scored, they dominated from the start and they played well because of that. But he's also said that he's not at 100%. Obviously, we know that he's had coronavirus. And he was asked about his position and where he likes to play. And he said that, he's played in all these positions and is here to serve the coach. I almost wish, though, that he had just been more firm and been like, you know what, I like to play off the striker or, in the number 10 role and just be like that, because I found that's kind of one of the problems with Allegri was he was just like, he wasn't vocal enough. But I mean, obviously it's a diplomatic answer, right? It's the media, and you don't want to say too much, but no, pretty professional interviews. What do you have to think about those comments from our obviously the player, I would say man of the match, and obviously our coach?
I think for Sarri, what he's saying about Delict is a fair assessment, but I would be remiss if I didn't think that he's really been given a heck of an opportunity by the fact that our only other viable center back option is Daniele Rugani right now, with Chiellini and Demiral both being sick, and arguably Demiral had been, forcing his way into the side ahead of Delict before he got injured. He had started a string of games, so I think the easiest way to become really proficient in a new league and in a new system is to be forced into the action. So I take that comment with a grain of salt. Yes, he is performing very well, nothing to take away from him, but as we know with Juve in general, at this time of the year, we probably would have seen Matthijs de Ligt with much less playing time if Chiellini had stayed healthy. In regard to his comments about Bernardeschi, it's wholly possible that that's a fair assessment. He's become more of a utility player at this point for us than anything else, so maybe it's a nod to that. As far as what Dybala said, I hope he's not getting the coronavirus again, saying that, of all things. Hopefully it's just like a little stomach ailment or just having an off day. What he did say about the Napoli game, I totally disagree with. We haven't played well since we've returned. Not emphatically well, except for the first 15 to 20 minutes of the Milan game. Yeah. I think it would have been more justified if Napoli beat us in regular time. They created way more of the positive chances. They clearly had a better design to face us in defense. So I think if we would have won, it probably would have been a little bit unjust to Napoli's performance since coming back, because they've looked a much better side.
Yeah, I have to agree with that assessment of the post-match interviews. Again, looking forward to next game. So obviously we play Lecce next at the J Stadium, 12:45 Pacific, 3:45 Eastern time for us North Americans and obviously South Americans. Another big test with all the other teams dropping points. I think although they are a smaller team, a team that obviously looks like they're going to get relegated, I think they could easily follow the blueprint of teams that have played a hell of a lot better than us and sit back, put 10 behind the ball, and literally try and counter us and obviously force us to create a lot of chances. Obviously, we looked pretty good. We were making some good runs. We were playing out wide. And a lot of the crosses I felt were pretty strong. But again, I think this is key for us. Obviously, we want to get these wins under our belt and kind of get the train rolling. And obviously, the first team I think that finds really the momentum and can win 4 or 5 games in a row is going to be the team that really locks it up and obviously finalizes the Scudetto. So we'll see what happens. Kind of what are your brief thoughts on our next game?
So this is actually kind of ironic that we're in this situation, because yesterday on the Juve show I was on, and I made the point that the Atalanta-Lazio game was going to be a massive game for us, because if Atalanta takes points from Lazio, the Lecce game becomes critical for the rest of our season. So I think if I'm sorry, and I see Lazio drop points to Atalanta, I see Milan drop points to Sassuolo, this is really a game that's going to define his season. He needs to go out at 100% with the foot completely on the gas, because with the fixture list coming up, with the perhaps being 7 points clear, which isn't just 2 games, it's more than 2 games we put ourselves out in front. Right. It really gives us a huge springboard for the rest of the year, because the upcoming games aren't the tough fixture list, and if we can continue to build that confidence when we play the run of Milan, Atalanta, Lazio at the beginning of July, if we can maintain that margin and continue to rotate in players that maybe aren't as, potent for us, aren't as utilized against these smaller sides, it allows us to keep our, star players healthy. So when we do go play them, we're, A, playing with a full strength squad against them, and B, if, let's say against, Atalanta or Lazio, we draw or drop points, we still have that cushion. So I think that this upcoming game is going to be a huge, huge opportunity for Sarri, and either make or break his season with Juventus this year. And my hope is that he sends the squad out in a way that kind of mirrors that thought process. Obviously, the big question mark will be left back, and I presume my gut feeling would tell me Matuidi would be there just on experience and engine in this type of game, and that you may see, Benta Korpjanic and one of Ramsey and Rabiot starting from the center. I think the rest of the defense will remain really the same in Bonucci, De Ligt, Cuadrado, and it's going to be just a matter of who it is between Bernardeschi and Costa up top with Dybala and Ronaldo. So, I hope I haven't jinxed it at this point, because I've talked about it a couple of times, and I hope we don't, because we have slipped up against this team before. But they haven't looked great since coming back. Milan put up 4 against them, and I would say if Milan's putting up 4 against them, we could at least give ourselves 2, maybe 3 And even if they do pull one back, I'm confident we can take the points, and I really hope we don't. This is really a banana peel game for us. I hope we don't slip.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Again, like you said, we play Lecce, well, obviously Lecce, and then obviously at Genoa and Derby delle Molle. For those 3 games in a row are going to be key, because then we go into a big 2 games against Milan and Atalanta. Now, Milan, a team that's already shown with the limited player. Obviously, they didn't have Castillejo and Theo Hernandez for the game in the Coppa Italia, but definitely a team that's probably has confidence against us. But hopefully, 3 big wins to that point puts us, I believe, in a great position. And then you go obviously against AC Milan and Atalanta, and then you see where you are at the end of that point, and then the big game against Lazio later on. So, no, it's definitely all to play for still. I agree 100%. Let's get into some questions from some of the guys on the WhatsApp group. Thank you guys again. Rafa asked thoughts on Bernardeschi. I think we made it quite clear. I think he's done pretty well this game. All to do in the coming games if he does start. I'd agree. I guess you probably agree the same, Travis.
Yeah,
Just to go through that one quickly. Yeah. What can we expect from Bernardeschi? The new version of him from Grigori. I don't know. Again, something where is this really a new version or was it a 1-game thing? We'll have to wait and see. I mean, he could also get locked up in a game against a team where he's making the right runs, but if the passing isn't crisp and we're not locked in, it could look like games against Napoli and Milan quite easily again. So going to do with left back, I think I agree with you 100% with the Matuidi shout. I think it's just necessity. I mean, he is, like you said, the workhorse. And I think that's just what we got to do. Unfortunately, Danilo does what he does, and that's what we got to do. So, Pjanic from Rafa, thank you again for the question. What are your thoughts, Pjanic? So, are you thinking it's just his head is out of it, or he's on to Barcelona, or what do you think? Because I know not on the last podcast, but when I had Juve on, he believed that, it was kind of like a Dybala situation where, when you're playing with these guys that are not necessarily up to par, it's understandable that you're lacking, right? That you lose the confidence and you're not necessarily playing at your best. So I think I agree. I think you did say it, it's time for him to go maybe to greener pastures. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Pjanic? I think it's definitely time to let go. I just hope we can get some good money for him and we don't botch the transfer and get like 60 million or 55 million because Barca doesn't believe in that value. I'd be kind of disappointed if that was the case.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a separate issue. But anyways,
I think for me with Pjanic, it's just been a matter of, we expected him to come in and be a playmaker. He has the range of passing. He has the capability. And I think, maybe even if it's like a lack of confidence or his head's not in the right place, we're not even see him attempting at this point to be that creative player. He might have like a 90+% pass accuracy, but like even, I could have that pass accuracy if I'm playing 3-meter passes horizontally for 90% of my passes. There is just no creativity in his passing. He doesn't seem to be making any effort. You see him walking all the time. He gets lost in the game. He's just not contributing. And I don't know if you give him anybody else that he all of a sudden turns into like an Andrea Pirlo caliber player where all of a sudden he's unlocked, his mind's eye and can see everyone anywhere on the pitch. I'd rather see him attempt, to drop a pass on a dime and it not come through or to get intercepted than to see 100, 3-meter passes. So, yeah, I think perhaps the best thing for him and for us is just to move him on at this point. Let him try again at someplace else, and if he doesn't change, let him be somebody else's problem.
Right. Khalifa asks, thank you again for the question. What do you think of Ronaldo? Why do you think Ronaldo's been underperforming? Obviously, since the restart, do you think it's a match fitness issue, or I know you commented it on a little bit earlier, but your thoughts on Ronaldo?
I think it's just a sharpness thing. I think he's, anybody after not playing for or doing anything for 3 months and being laid up, not practicing every day, and just working, on fitness or something like that on your own at home, there's going to be a little bit, of rust. I mean, he got back amongst the goals, so you have to appreciate that. And hopefully that's kind of the spark that lights the fire. But again, for me, I mentioned this a bit earlier, he's really a man of consistency. And any striker, they'll go through a rut where they may not score for a few games. But I think once he does catch fire again, he'll be right back to his usual self, scoring almost every game without question.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was on a pretty good run before, and unfortunately we had to stop the season because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But yeah, no, I have hope for him. I do have a lot of hope because he did score a lot of goals for us, and he was key in a lot of the situations that we had. If you look at between him and Dybala, how many times they were involved with the goal or the assist, it's a big majority. I'm not 100% sure on the numbers, but it's either 80, 90%. So definitely need to get him back to that top level. We'll see what happens, obviously, in the next game. And Felix with a great question that I didn't even realize. What are your thoughts on Juve being the team with the least goals allowed in Serie A right now?
Yeah, I can't say I'm terribly surprised. We've always been a strong defensive team. So, yeah, I'm not shocked. And we've always been, more of a defense-first team historically. I mean, we have a strong defense, and it shows when you look at the history for us in terms of results. We're winning, 1-0, 2-0. We're not playing these beautiful open games like the Lazio game today where it's 3-2. Like we're constantly very unpotent going forward for the most part, and very potent from a defensive standpoint. And I think we've been, kind of amongst that mix of teams almost every year, the past few years. So kind of business as usual for us.
Yeah, and I think it gets a little bit lost when you think about it. We've had 3 clean sheets in a row to start this, and it was more of I know there's been a lot of talk about the obviously the offensive side, and I think that's kind of overshadowing. Obviously, we've had some moments where we've looked sloppy, and I guess we could have been scored on. But yeah, no, I think they've been pretty solid at the back so far. Like you said, it's pretty much a tradition. I think it gets more questioned now or it's kind of surprising because we're supposed to be this more offensive team, and we almost assume that we're going to be leaking goals. But, so far it hasn't shown in these last 3 games. So that's a good positive, I think, to leave on. Just to close out, I appreciate you coming on. But the last segment of the show that we like to have here at the Juventinita Back to Black and White podcast, we like to call Allo Stadio. So you've told me that you have not been to the new stadium, but you were at the Dell'Alpi. And man, just take us through, who Juve were playing against, the atmosphere. Obviously, these meetup groups weren't necessarily a big thing, I would say, back then. It's more of the community's obviously grown. It's come a long way. It started, I think, with Maurizio, really pulling a lot of guys together, and now this whole community in different obviously on Twitter, WhatsApp, Discord, all these different channels and platforms, bringing people closer together. But yeah, just your basic experience. I know you've met someone special. We'll get into that next. But yeah, just how it was to get people excited about going back to the stadium again, because I'm definitely looking forward to going whenever we can, whenever these borders are opened again. But yeah, go ahead. The floor is yours, Travis.
Yeah, I mean, truly a surreal experience for me, especially growing up in the United States, because it's the only time I've seen them play like out of the country. I've seen them at games domestically when they've been here, like International Champions Cup. But
Yep.
I mean, I can't say that it was a beautiful stadium, and I think everybody kind of knows that about the Dell'Alpi. I believe they played Fiorentina. I can't remember the result off the top of my head, but for me to just be in like amongst like the curva and around, a whole bunch of supporters that supported the same team as me was an unbelievable experience. I do want to get back to the J Stadium, and it's kind of like, when I think back on it, it's kind of sad because I've been to Italy a few times for like different reasons, for like work, or if I was playing music or something like that, and that was the only time I've ever been in Turin or like close enough to them to like see them play. So I've actually probably seen more like games at like other stadiums of other Italian teams than Juventus games. But yeah, I mean, it's something that I'll never forget. And hopefully, I think next year, because I turn 30 next year, and I'll be an old man then, as a little birthday present to myself, I'll send myself back. God willing, it's safe to do. But that's kind of the game plan for right now.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's definitely going. It's nice to going back. So, do you still have family in and around Torino, or not necessarily anymore? Because I know, I mean, every family's different, right? For me, it's crazy. I have a lot of family, everywhere. Vegas, New Jersey, France, apparently, Spain, Italy, and various cities. So lots of places to visit. But how about yourself? Are they, obviously, that's kind of where your ancestry is from, right? So do you have a lot of relatives back there to visit?
It's mostly extended family at this point, not people that like we are in touch with like really frequently or really well. I think almost the only time I've ever met most of those people are at my grandparents' funerals, when they've come to like pay their respects. They're not so far removed that if I were to go back and I'd be there for like a period of time, not like 1 day or 2 days, I could get in touch with them and probably have a chat with them, get to know them a little bit better. But yeah, a little bit, but I don't have any of their phone numbers, let's say that.
That's all right, just give an excuse to go back there, right?
Right, exactly.
And then you met, you were lucky, and I'm gonna say it right now, I'm jealous that you got to meet a certain special someone at his restaurant in Los Angeles. I hope to go down there and one day be able to meet him as well. Alessandro Del Piero, how was that? And you said it was on your birthday, I believe, correct?
Yep. So my parents don't actually live here in California, and so for like my birthday dinner, because obviously I'm like a massive Juventus fan, they came out to visit for not on my actual birthday, but it was to like celebrate. And I was like, I want to take you guys here, and they're like, tell us about it. And they're like, oh my god, this is the whole ordeal. And it's actually kind of a funny story, because when we got there, I'd asked if he would be there, if he is there, and they're like, well, if he's in town, he's here. And we had probably been there for like 2.5 hours at this point. And I was having like an after dinner drink, and I was like, I just want to wait like 5 more minutes. And the maitre d' type character comes like running over, and starts giving me the signal to like stand up. And we were literally about to leave. The bill was paid, and he comes strolling over, and I'm like, oh my god. And my mom's like, give me your phone, I'll take some pictures. And I think the first thing that I said to him, I just blurted it out, because I don't really get starstruck because I work in the music industry, so I meet a lot of people. But he is one person I would get starstruck around, and I just blurted out, "You're basically my hero." And he kind of laughed and said, "Basically," but just an unbelievably nice guy. And then through my involvement with, like previously through Juventus fan club of Southern California, which is now Los Angeles, which I'm not really real active with anymore because I've been busy with work, and I live in like the southernmost part of Los Angeles, so a lot of where the meetups are like a pretty long, endeavor to like get to and from for me, with traffic obviously here. Yeah. But I've actually gotten to meet him quite a few more times after that. He has I guess like a third like tier soccer team, because there is some promotion relegation in the in the United States soccer team. So I've been to a couple of his games for that. Team's called
nice.
And he's at almost every one of those games. And then we have had a couple more viewing parties at his restaurant. He's been there. So just honestly an unbelievably nice guy. Every time I see him, he remembers who I am. I actually have more pictures with him. That one's just sentimental to me because of the first time, and it was in relation to my birthday, and it was time I get to spend with my parents, whom I rarely get to see anyways. So yeah, unbelievably nice dude. Can't say enough about him.
Yeah, that's unreal, man. I'm jealous. Yeah, maybe I got to move down to Los Angeles now, because that's just crazy. And yeah, with his involvement in LA10FC, that's crazy. I didn't even think about it. So yeah, guys, now you know where to find El Piero. If not at his restaurant, check out LA10FC to find a game and check it out. But
free to go to, because it's like such a low tier. They're
right.
Like high schools and things like that. So you just like meander in. So maybe there'll be more fans there for the games.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, fun fact though, because most people probably wouldn't think this, but I think he has like an endorsement with this company, but he actually drives a Kia.
Oh, okay.
So not exactly driving a real high-end fancy car, but I think it's because he has some type of endorsement or advertising agreement with them, so he gets them for free. Don't quote me on that, but every time I've like seen him, he's always pulling up in Kias.
Well, we got the exclusive here. That's that's interesting. Plus, he's got kids too, right? So I don't think he's gonna be rocking up in any sports cars maybe anymore. But
for the Sunday drive without his kids, he's bringing out the sports car still.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, Travis, I appreciate you coming on. It was kind of a whole with all these games now. It's like I'm stressing over who to bring on, but I appreciate you coming on. And just where to get at you on, obviously on Twitter, and obviously you're a musician, and I believe you told me you were nominated for a pretty special award. Is that correct? Or am I?
Yep, I can't really like talk about that though because of a contractual agreement. But I was nominated for a pretty. I was part of the nomination group, so something that like most people don't like think about or like know a ton of is like if you get nominated for like a pretty big award, it's not just like the face of it. It's usually runs down to like the production staff and things like that. So it's not usually just the person getting handed the award that gets it. Most award ceremonies are actually like almost a week long, and that's where like the other parts of it get their awards. But so I make music for a living. I do contract work for that, so if you need music for anything, like songs written or, not super fantastic for beats, actually I still owe you a little something, and it's just been a hectic time for me, but that's what I do for a living. So if you need music for anything, out there that anybody watching needs, give me a shout. I'm not ridiculously expensive and try to do it based on what you need. And then you can find me online. My My Twitter, that's where I spend most of my time, is Travis M as in Mark Gallardo. And I'm sure I'll get tagged in this, and I'll be sure to retweet it. But yeah, pleasure to be on here. Good to chat with you, and be happy to come back at some point if you need some more guests because you're running out with all the games.
Yeah, it's crazy. It seems like I run out and then I drop a message and then I get like 4. So I just got to do a little bit of a better job of reconnaissance and, scheduling these in. It is a busy time. I just started a new job for the rest of this year at least. But definitely we'll have you back. It's always nice having someone to chat about Juve and getting different opinions. Obviously, everybody's in a different boat on how they feel about the club and certain players and coaches and this. So it's always nice to hear how everyone obviously is doing. And yeah, I definitely hope to hear that, like I said, when it's ready, this guy's going to have the new, when I did say that I was going to be looking for a new theme, I definitely did reach out to Travis. So we hope to see that in the future. Guys, again, just some closing remarks as always, just accustomed to the show. You guys know, obviously I'm at Juventinita, DAL for my initials on Twitter and Instagram, obviously YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, the usual. Again, just keep an eye on Twitter. Obviously I dropped the Twitter link in WhatsApp and Discord as well, just to make it easier for those guys as well. Some people not necessarily on Twitter. So, but definitely there's going to be another one coming up shortly with the pregame for Juve Lecce. And yeah, just stay tuned to Twitter for that, for the links on all platforms. But guys, appreciate all the support. I believe we're close to 500 views total, which is awesome over all the platforms. Subscribers are building up here and there. And if you guys could, every little part that, you guys could do helps me out. And again, I appreciate all the questions. You guys are always quick to answer to when I need questions for the show or topics or what you guys want to hear. So it's been really great so far. We cracked the double digits. Obviously, this is number 11. And we have some interesting things coming up, actually, just in the DMs so far. I don't want to get into it now, but there's definitely some cool stuff coming up. And as always, fino alla fine, forza Juventus. Ciao.